The stars outside orbital reach 9 shimmered like dying embers, flickering against the curvature of a world whose surface no longer stirred with life. Inside the station's administrative ring, Commander Elias Vorn stood in silence, hands clasped. Behind his back as he stared through reinforced glass at the gray sphere below. Even from orbit, the planet looked like a grave. Its atmosphere glowed faintly violet from scattered plasma storms, beauty born of destruction. He didn't blink. He had seen this kind of beauty before. The door hissed open behind him. "Refugees are being offloaded now," came the clipped voice of Lieutenant Sal. "They've begun building temporary quarters in Section 9. Elias turned with mechanical precision. "Any complications?" "None reported except," Saul hesitated. "Your co-liaison arrived early, the Alari representative." Elias's brow lifted slightly. "Alari? Yes, sir. She refused security escort. She's already in the diplomatic wing." He nodded once. "No thanks, no sigh." Just another folder in a cabinet of duties that stretched back 20 years. Diplomacy had long ago stopped stirring emotion in him. Loyalty had replaced feeling. He was the Corps' finest enforcer of peace. Cold, reliable, precise. But nothing prepared him for the moment he saw her. Alari did not rise when he entered the room. She stood at the far end, gazing at the stars through a narrow viewport. Her skin shimmered faintly like polished obsidian flecked with silver, and her posture was neither tense nor relaxed, merely present, like a mountain or a memory. Her long hair, braided with filaments that pulsed faintly, framed a face both ancient and ageless. She didn't turn when he spoke. "I'm Commander Elias Vorn, Terran Corps. You're alari of the Alari enclave." Her voice came like wind over distant water. "I know who you are." He felt the words ripple in his chest, not because of tone, but because she meant them. Every syllable held emotional resonance, like she had weighed the sentence 1,000 times before speaking. He crossed the room and placed a datapad on the table. "This is the refugee manifest. 53 confirmed survivors from your lineage. We've set quarters and nutritional programming per council guidelines." She turned. Her eyes were like dusk and dawn tangled together. Not luminous, but deep, pulling him inward. She said nothing, simply held his gaze. For a man like Elias, silence was normal. Silence in meetings, silence in victory, silence in mourning. But her silence was different. Not absence, but judgment, assessment. "Your input will be expected." "During the Tri-Species Resolution Summit," he said, tone unchanged. She tilted her head slightly, as though measuring his words not for accuracy, but for intention. "And if I choose not to speak?" Elias hesitated. The answer was procedural. "You will be repatriated under Clause 38 of Interspecies Protocol." She nodded. "Then I will not speak." Before he could respond, the lights above flickered. Once, twice, engineering. He snapped into his comms. "Diagnose power fluctuation in diplomatic wing." Alari didn't move. But the moment her eyes narrowed, the lights stabilized. "Weird," came the reply over comms. "No. Anomalies in the grid. Everything's clean." She turned back to the window. "The station doesn't like me," she murmured. He stared at her, pulse steady, expression unreadable, but something in his chest had shifted. Later that evening, in the dim solitude of his quarters, Elias read the classified directive again. A simple sentence, hidden in dense code. If Subject Alari refuses diplomatic participation by cycle's end, initiate forced transfer to Sector Zeta 3 for processing. Close the file. The door to his room opened without alert. I stood there, cloaked in dim light, her presence unsettling in its quiet intensity. She walked forward, and before he could speak, she knelt before him. "I can give you more than they ever will," she whispered. The moment Alari knelt before him, the silence in Commander Elias Vorn's quarters became something alive. The sterile air of Orbital Reach 9's administrative wing, always recycled, always humming, now felt dense and pulsing as though it too were listening. He stood frozen, muscles tight beneath his regulation uniform, unable to tear his gaze away from the alien woman bowed at his feet. Her voice had been no louder than a breath, yet it echoed inside him like thunder. "I can give you more than they ever will." "Alari," he said, uncertain, the name foreign and fragile in his mouth. She lifted her head slowly, eyes meeting his with an intensity that bypassed language. "They ask for obedience," she said, voice velvet and iron. "They offer ranks and rules. But I offer something they cannot understand. I offer bond, resonance, truth." His mouth was dry. "I don't know what you're doing." "You feel it." She rose in a single, fluid motion and stepped close, her presence unnerving, magnetic. "You felt it since we met. That pressure in your thoughts, the pull between us. It's not your imagination. It's the beginning of what my people called the weave." "That's just telepathic suggestion," Elias said, his tone faltering for the first time in years. "No, it is consent, elevated. A symbiosis of mind and soul. We never force. We only invite." Alarms rang faintly in his mind, warnings from his training, diplomatic integrity, chain of command, species boundaries, all screaming for distance. But something deeper within him whispered, "Listen, you were bonded before," he said, voice low, to another Terran. "There were rumors he vanished. Was that you?" She flinched, not from guilt, but memory. "Yes." He chose the bond, but Terran command feared what it made him. They called him compromised, declared him a threat. He disappeared during an accident on Station Helios. He was the first human to feel what you now feel. "And what did he feel?" Elias asked. She stepped even closer. "Freedom, purpose, the unbearable lightness of being known completely and loved regardless." Elias's throat tightened. It was too much, too intimate, too fast. And yet he couldn't move. Every word she spoke sliced through the armor he'd worn for decades. "They'll kill you if they find out," he said finally. "They already plan to," she replied calmly. "They fear what I am, what I represent. And now they fear you, because they know you're listening." The air shimmered slightly around her, not visibly but in some psychic sense, like the room had bent slightly under invisible pressure. Then the lights died. Darkness. His hand went instinctively to his wrist console. Emergency backup activated, casting red glow across the chamber. She hadn't moved. "They're scanning the diplomatic quarters," she said. "Pulse sweeps. Looking for signatures beyond baseline human. They'll detect me if I stay." He breathed hard. "Where can you go?" "That depends," she said, eyes searching his. "Will you hide me?" "If I do this," he whispered, "if I help you, it means the end of everything I've built. Or the beginning of something you've never known." His mind spun with questions, doubts, protocols. But beneath all that, buried in the quiet corners of his soul, something stirred. The memory of all the times he had stood in rooms full of diplomats and never once felt seen. The years of loyalty that earned him titles, but no connection. The silence in his own mind where meaning should have lived. Alarms blared suddenly outside. The station's public alert system screamed across the intercoms. Security lockdown initiated. All personnel remain in current sectors. Unidentified. Energy signature detected in Section 9. Alari turned toward the sound. "They're coming for me." "We can't escape through the main corridors," Elias said. "But there's a maintenance shaft behind the sanitation console." He moved fast, unlocking the panel in his wall. "You'll need to crawl through power conduits. Stay low past the oxygen regulators and drop down behind the hydroponic chamber. She hesitated only once, looking at him with something almost tender. You'll follow? She asked. Elias nodded, jaw clenched. I'll erase the logs. Give you time. Her hand touched his shoulder briefly, a surge of heat and emotion passing between them. Then she vanished into the shadows of the wall. 5 minutes later, security officers burst into his quarters. Rifles raised, Commander Vorn, the lead, barked. We have orders to apprehend the alari liaison for questioning. She was traced to this sector. Elias gave a practiced frown. If she came through here, I didn't see her. They scanned the room. Nothing. No trace. No heat signature. But they missed the small, shimmering thread glinting in the corner, barely visible. A single strand of the weave she had left behind. Like a promise. Alone again, Elias sat down, heart pounding. He had just committed treason, and for the first time in his life, he felt alive. A cold wind howled through the sublevel corridors of Orbital Reach 9, though there were no windows and no weather. The wind was a trick caused by malfunctioning air vents in a forgotten part of the station where no diplomat, officer, or official had walked in years. It was in these darkened veins of the great orbital structure that Alari moved like a shadow, silent and unseen, a fugitive not by guilt but by design. Commander Elias Vorn stared at the access panel to Sector 7's control deck, his fingers trembling as they hovered above the interface. In just 3 minutes, he would reroute the station's energy diagnostics to loop old data and blind the internal sensors to alari's psychic pulse. This wasn't just interference, it was betrayal, and yet every cell in his body screamed that it was right. She's more than a political problem, he told himself. She's a key to something bigger than this hollow bureaucracy. And maybe, deep down, she was also the answer to a question he hadn't dared ask in years. What if I was made for something more than obedience? His console beeped, soft and urgent. Someone had activated the diplomatic wing's override, not a technician, not a system update. No, this was a deliberate manual access attempt. Then came the whisper, not in sound but in sensation. There. Probing. Searching for the bond. I'm shielding us. But I'm growing tired. It was her. Not on comms, not on relay, but in his thoughts. Alari's presence was delicate but firm, like silk woven through his mind. Not pushing but resting, waiting for him to allow it in deeper. He leaned on the console, breath ragged. How are you doing this? He whispered aloud. Her voice inside him pulsed with warmth. You opened a thread when you helped me. Now even apart, we touched. A sudden knock rattled his door. Elias snapped his wrist console closed and composed himself just as Lieutenant Kara Sloan stepped in. Tall, sharp-eyed, loyal to a fault, and one of the few people left on the station who still called Elias a friend. You look like hell, she said, folding her arms. Working double shifts? Elias lied. Cut the garbage, she said. I know what's happening. Security thinks the alari woman's inside this sector, and your logs are too clean, too perfect. I trained with you, remember? You're good, but you don't make mistakes like these unless you're hiding something. He didn't answer. Couldn't. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. They're authorizing use of subdermal probes, Elias. Once those go online, they'll trace any shared emotional resonance. If you've bonded, even partially, they'll find it? Elias looked up sharply. You knew? She gave him a sad smile. I've been watching you for years, Elias. Ever since Cash and Helios, you've been empty, going through the motions. But yesterday, when you walked out of Central Command, you had fire again. Help me, he said, voice breaking with urgency. She's not the threat. It's what she knows, what she is. They want to bury her because her people, left of them could change everything. Kara stared at him for a long moment, the kind of silence that made friendships or destroyed them. Then she stepped back toward the door. Maintenance crew clears Section 7 at 0500. That's your window. After that, I don't know you. When she left, Elias stood still for a full minute. Then he opened the hidden panel beneath the deck and dropped into the maintenance shaft. Alari was waiting in the lower thermoregulation chamber, crouched behind a stack of decommissioned coolant cells. Her hair shimmered faintly in the infrared glow of a nearby power core, eyes catching the light like mirrors reflecting forgotten stars. He reached her and crouched down, heart racing. "They're escalating," he whispered. "They'll start looking for mental residue, emotional signatures," she nodded. "The partial bond makes us visible to their technology. Our emotions, our connection, it hums on a frequency they've learned to fear." "Why fear it?" he asked, desperate. "Why erase a race capable of empathy? Because empathy is power. And power they cannot control becomes a threat." Alari reached out slowly, palm up. "We can sever the link," she said gently. "If you walk away now, you'll be safe. They won't find a trace. Not if I cut the thread." Elias looked down at her hand. It trembled not from fear, but from restraint. She didn't want to sever it. And neither did he. "No," he whispered, taking her hand in his. "They've had enough of my silence, my obedience, my life. I'm not theirs anymore." When their palms met, a rush of warmth surged through him, not heat, but belonging. He gasped as her presence unfolded through his mind like 1,000 threads weaving around his thoughts, not binding but supporting. His memories passed through her awareness: his first launch, his father's funeral, the loneliness of late nights in empty halls. And in return, she showed him her world lush and silver with trees that sang, a sky with rivers of light, and people who danced to the rhythm of each other's hearts. And then, the fires, the ships, the fear, the betrayal. He saw her fall to her knees before a Terran officer, screaming for peace, and he saw the barrel of a weapon raised to her face. Elias woke on the floor. Seconds had passed, or maybe hours. Alari was kneeling beside him, her fingers tracing light circles on his temple. "We're deeper now," she whispered. "Any scan will know. There's no turning back." He nodded, heart pounding with something that wasn't just adrenaline. It was purpose. Alarms erupted above them, louder, closer. Carrie's single quotes as voice rang through a secure channel in his ear. "Change of plans. They found a heat spike. They're closing in fast." Alari stood, regal even in desperation. "We must run. Not just from them, but toward something greater." "Toward what?" "Freedom," she said, eyes glowing with memory and pain and hope. "But only if we survive the night." The storm came faster than expected. Orbital reached 9's. Artificial night cycle was supposed to become a protocol designed to simulate circadian rhythm. But this night, as the power grid fluctuated and containment locks stuttered across sectors, it was anything but restful. The entire station pulsed with warning lights. Sirens whispered behind bulkheads. Pressure alarms bled into one another like a chorus of unease. Commander Elias Vorn didn't sleep. He crouched behind a thermal vent deep in Sector 7 with Alari. Pressed close beside him, her presence like a soft current humming in his chest. They'd been running for hours. Not from beasts or bullets, but from a system that feared what they represented. The bond between them was now irreversible, and it was growing. "They've sealed decks 3 through 6, Alari whispered, her voice barely louder than breath. Yet each word struck like thunder inside his thoughts. "They're tightening the net," Elias nodded. Sweat clung to his neck despite the cold. "We'll reroute through the auxiliary oxygen system. It connects to the lower drone base still off-grid due to calibration delays." Alari tilted her head, listening not with ears, but with mind. They have dogs now, not real ones. Memory. Hounds, engineered to track neural residue. Elias cursed under his breath. If they detect our bond signature, then they'll never stop hunting us, she finished. A moment passed between them, heavy and full of understanding. Not fear acceptance. We go now, he said the crawl through the oxygen duct. Was brutal. Tight metal passageways, laced with frost and forgotten tool marks, scraped at their backs as they moved. At one point, they passed a corpse, an old technician who died quietly years ago and was never found. Alari touched the faded bones and murmured something soft and in her language, a quiet honoring of the lost. Finally, they dropped into the drone bay. It was vast and still, lined with silent machines stacked in skeletal towers, waiting for commands that would never come. And standing near the far wall was Kara Sloan. She didn't aim her weapon. Not at first. You're compromised, she said softly. Elias stepped forward, shielding Alari. Kara, please. Her eyes were glassy, tired. I watched the security feeds. I saw the moment you let her into your mind. Do you know what this means, Elias? I do. Then you know. You can never go back. I'm not trying to, he said. Kara exhaled shakily. Her gun lowered a fraction. You were always better than the Corps deserved. They used you until you were hollow. And now you look alive again. Alari stepped out from behind him. She doesn't want to kill us, Kara blinked. Don't do that. Don't crawl into my head. I'm not, Alari said gently. I only listen to what's already screaming. Kara stared, eyes shining with unshed tears. What do you want, Elias? She asked. He didn't hesitate. A chance. To be more than their weapon. To protect. Her, to protect something real. Kara slowly nodded. Then you'll need this. She tossed him a small sphere. A forged diplomatic clearance beacon. Level 9. The highest class. This will get you through the outer checkpoint, she said. But once you're gone, they'll erase you. You'll be listed as deceased, defected, hunted, Elias smiled. That sounds honest. Kara walked away without another word. I turned to him, her eyes wide, glowing slightly under the cold white lights. Your heart, it's changed. He touched her cheek, his fingers trembling. You changed it. No, she whispered. You just stopped hiding. They made it to the outer lock as the breach alarm sounded across the station. Memory hounds were loose now, psychic constructs of encoded guilt and fear, designed not just to find, but to paralyze the mind. Elias had trained with them. He'd seen proud officers collapse into convulsions as these creatures tore through. Emotional defenses like blades through silk. They were waiting. Alari stood still at the final threshold. Her hands rose and her eyes went white. Not glowing, just light itself. Pure resonance pulsed from her chest in waves. Elias felt it, not just in his mind, but in the station itself. Pipes quivered, lights flickered. Even the walls seemed to tremble as her presence poured outward like a storm of feeling. The hounds whimper and they backed away. They remember us, she said softly. They were built to destroy us, but they were made by minds that once loved us. The memory of that love still lingers. Elias stared in awe as the psychic beast dispersed into smoke, leaving only silence behind. They were your peoples. Creations? He asked. No, she said, taking his hand. They were yours, built with stolen knowledge, corrupted by fear, but not forgotten. Together, they stepped into the shuttle, sealing the hatch behind them. As the engines roared to life, Orbital Reach 9 shrank beneath them, its long arms stretching into the void like a monument to a civilization that had almost lost its soul. Alari sat beside him, her hand resting over his heart. They'll chase us. Let them, he whispered. were no longer theirs. Outside, the stars shifted, and something in the galaxy began to awaken. The stars beyond the shuttle's viewport bled across the void like ancient wounds, silent and eternal. Elias Vorn had seen 1,000 starfields in his years of service, but never like this. Not while sitting beside someone who could feel his thoughts with such aching precision. Not while fleeing the very system he once served with pride. Alari sat in the co-pilot seat, her hands resting on the side rails, eyes half closed. She wasn't asleep. She was listening to him, to the stars, to the echo of emotions left behind. In the wake of their escape, "They're still scanning," she murmured, her voice low, distant. "They haven't found us, yet." Elias didn't speak. He was trying to hold his thoughts still, like water in a trembling glass. But Alari felt. "The ripples anyway. Your guilt won't help us now," she said gently. "It's not guilt," he replied. "It's, not regret. Just the knowledge that everything familiar is gone." "No," she said, "not gone. Just too small to contain who you've become." The console beeped a low-frequency signal, encrypted, old protocol, incoming. "Message," Elias said, fingers dancing over controls. "Unknown relay, origin point, not on the charts." Alari opened her eyes. "Answer it." The screen flickered, and the face of an old man appeared lined with age and wisdom, his uniform bearing insignias that had been decommissioned a decade ago. "Commander Elias Vorn," the man said. "Or should I say outcast now?" Elias narrowed his eyes. "Identify yourself," the man smiled. "I'm Admiral Siros Valen, retired, but not dead. I run the Halolite Observatory, a place for those like you, those who've touched something the Corps tried to erase." Alari leaned forward. "You know of the bond." "I witnessed the last true bonding before the extermination campaigns," Valen said. "I saw what your kind could do, how empathy itself became a weapon of truth. I tried to protect it, failed. But some of us remember. Why contact us?" Elias asked. "Because you're not the first to run," Valen said. "But you may be the first to run with purpose. I'm transmitting coordinates." A station hidden inside the fracture rift. In dark space where sensors collapse and minds fray. "If you can make it there, others are waiting." The screen blinked off. Alar, I turned to Elias. "Can you navigate a rift?" He smirked faintly. "I've threaded sensor ghost fields and charted plasma storms in unlit quadrants. I can get us there." "But?" Inside, doubt churned. The fracture was legend spoken of in hushed tones among engineers and star jockeys. A space that swallowed signals, warped perception, and twisted time. If they entered it, there was no guarantee they'd come out. Still. He set course. As they approached the rift, the stars began to bend. Not physically, but through the viewport, light itself appeared to hesitate. Like it was afraid. Alarms blared softly as the ship entered the outer threshold. Gravity became a suggestion. Time fractured into fragments, alarms flashing before. Systems triggered, engines flaring in response to actions that hadn't happened yet. Elias gritted his teeth. "Manual control only. I can't handle this." Alari placed her hand on his. The moment they touched, his mind cleared, not fully, but enough. Her calm steadied him like gravity restored. They crossed the threshold and fell, but not through space. Through memory. Visions exploded in Elias's head, snippets of his childhood, the quiet heartbreak of his mother's funeral, the first time he dreamed of building a ship that would carry life to stars. Voices of instructors. The cold silence of award ceremonies. The bitterness of every unspoken grief. And then her, Alari, every glance, every whisper, every feeling he'd buried since she arrived. Then other minds, Alari's past, her bondmate's death, the warmth of her people, The moment their planet burned and the silence that followed when no one answered their call for mercy. And deeper still a weave, a presence far larger than either of them, like a sleeping intelligence, ancient and sorrowful, brushing against their joined minds with the gentlest touch of recognition. Alar, I cried out, eyes wide. They're not gone. What, my people, the bonded, the originals. They're here, fragments of them, woven into the rift, hiding, watching, waiting. The ship burst through the final wave of distortion, and suddenly the fracture was behind them. Ahead was hello light. A ring-shaped structure hidden within a field of frozen gas and dust, lit by the slow pulse of a collapsing neutron star. It wasn't a station, it was a cathedral built from loss. Every beam was a salvaged relic. Every corridor a monument to those who defied extinction. A voice came over the comms. You made it. They landed. Inside, the halls were quiet but alive. Humans, Valari, and other hybrids moved together, not just coexisting but resonating. Elias could feel the echoes of bonds, weak, strong, broken, reborn. Admiral Valen met them in person. We've built more than a shelter, he said. We're building a choir, and you two, you may be the melody that wakes the galaxy. Alari gripped Elias's hand. What now? He asked. Valen smiled. Now? Now we teach others how to feel again. Elias looked at Alari, and she at him. They had not escaped. They had arrived. The walls of Halolite did not hum like orbital reach. 9. They breathed. Every corridor was threaded with biosynthetic resonance fibers, living strands woven by surviving Valari hands, each one attuned to emotion, memory, intention. Elias Vorn could feel the difference with every step. This place wasn't just built, it was felt into existence. And now, with Alari at his side, he stood not as an engineer, not as a diplomat, but as something new, something unclassified. Something feared. The Admiral's words echoed in his mind. Like prophecy, you two may be the melody that wakes the galaxy. And the galaxy had begun to stir. Reports were coming in from across fringe systems. Diplomatic relay stations silenced overnight. Sensor probes scrambled by psychic storms. Even the Terran Command's own archives had been hit. Corrupted files and missing history related to the Valari. It wasn't sabotage. It was memory reasserting itself. Lar, I called it the unfolding. The weave is waking, she explained one night as they sat inside the Chamber of Echoes, where the voices of past bonded still whispered across silver-lit walls. When two minds merge through bond, it creates a pulse like a thread plucked in a vast loom. And now enough of those threads have been strummed. The pattern is returning. And what happens, Elias asked, when the galaxy sees the pattern clearly again? She met his eyes. They'll try to destroy it. Again. The Council of Halolite convened for the first time in 12 years. Elias sat beside Alari, his presence earning quiet stares, not because he was unwanted, but because he was impossible. The first fully bonded Terran-Valari pair since the Purge. There were others now. Not many. A pair of fugitives from the Virian Republic. An old Valari healer and a blind human child who had instinctively opened her mind without training. Scattered lights in the dark but growing. Admiral Valen stood at the center of the chamber. No screens, no projections. Just the shared space of thought and breath. Command has issued a bounty on the bonded, he said bluntly. And more than that, they've activated Project Reverence. Alari went still. Others in the chamber gasped softly. Elias turned. What's Project Reverence? A mind weapon, Valen said. Designed using corrupted fragments of the weave. Implanted in elite operatives. It doesn't kill the body, it severs the connection. Surgically. Instantly. It tears a bond apart at its root. Alari looked ill. It kills the soul. They've already deployed 2 agents, Valen continued. We've lost contact with the outpost on Thera's moon, 4 bonded, gone. So they're not just hunting us, Elias whispered. They're trying to erase what we've become before it spreads. Yes, Valen said, and that's why we're not hiding anymore. He turned to Elias. You were once one of them. You know their systems, their mindsets, their weaknesses. We need you to lead a mission, not to fight, but to wake up the others. What kind of mission? A return. To orbital reach 9. The room went quiet. Ilari single quotes as breath caught. You want us to go back there? That place burns with memory. They'll feel us the moment we arrive. Valen nodded. Yes. And that's the point. Elias stood. You want to start a psychic war? No, Valen said. I want to ignite a revelation. There's a vault beneath the station. Old Valari records sealed by Terran engineers after the purge. It contains the last clean copy of the original weave patterns, unedited, undeniable. Alari rose beside Elias, her presence like fire wrapped in silk. If we release those patterns, the truth will cascade through every bonded mind in the galaxy. And maybe, Valen said, that truth will be louder than their fear. They left halolite in a vessel built from both worlds' Terran ship architecture fused with Valari biocircuitry. Its core thrummed not with fuel, but with memory strands wired directly into Alari's mind and Elias's intuition. Piloting it wasn't done with hands, but with trust. They named it Unity's Ghost Dot. As they approached orbital reach 9, Elias felt his chest tighten. The cold, bureaucratic monolith floated in the dark like a coffin holding his old self. Scans showed increased activity, doubled patrols, a new sensor net, and command vessels in standby orbit. They were expected. They wanted them to come. But Alari smiled, her eyes fierce. Then let's show them who we've become. They descended through unlisted vectors, bypassing traditional ports by shifting the ship's psychic field into low visibility mode, like sliding between thoughts rather than air. The ship brushed against the outer hull of Reach 9 and whispered to the old station. I reached out with her mind. Do you remember me? Metal groaned. Lights flickered. And the hidden hatch, once sealed since the purge, opened like a forgotten door in a dream. Inside the vault, the atmosphere was thick with static emotion. Elias could feel every life that had passed through every diplomat, every refugee, every silence that masked cruelty. But deeper still, behind reinforced walls, they found it. A glowing structure. Not data. Not code. A song. Woven into crystal threads. The patterns of the original weave pulsed like a living heartbeat. Ilari stepped forward and laid her hands on the strands. Her eyes went white. Elias staggered as a surge of resonance hit him, waves of truth, of love, of pain shared across time. Voices filled the chamber, not with words, but with memories. Millions of them. Bonds formed, bonds broken, unity found in moments of unspeakable beauty. I turned. And from her lips came not language, but vibration. Pure, harmonic sound. The weave was singing. And the galaxy would hear. The song of the weave tore through orbital reach 9 like a tidal wave of remembrance. Not loud, not in the way sound travels, but deeper, more ancient. It bypassed walls and encryption. It bypassed ears and eyes. It went straight into the hearts of those aboard the station, and not just them. Every Terran vessel in range, every satellite on silent watch, every mind remotely tuned to orbital relay protocols. The truth spread like fire across dry forest. And in the command center of Reach 9, Admiral Juno Morin staggered backward, clutching the console as the psychic frequency assaulted her carefully. Conditioned thoughts. What is this? She gasped, veins in her temple bulging, eyes flickering with confused recognition. Turn it off. Turn it off. But no one moved, because every officer in the room had gone still. Some of them were crying, others simply sat down, stunned as memory fragments buried beneath decades of propaganda surfaced all at once. Old friendships with Valari envoys. Smiles from bonded refugee children. The warmth of thoughts shared once upon a time before fear was weaponized and called. The Weave did not attack. It remembered. And in remembering, it unlocked. On the lower decks, technicians clutched their heads not in pain but in the overwhelming beauty of it, of knowing something had been stolen from them long ago. The right to feel without filter. The right to belong to something. Bigger than orders and silence, Commander Elias Vorn stood at the heart of the vault beside Alari, bathed in shimmering resonance. The strands of the weave pulsed brighter now, reacting to their completed bond, two souls interlaced with such honesty that the pattern around them sang louder than any broadcast ever could. And suddenly, across every channel, screen, and frequency, Galaxy heard Elias speak. Not a message, a confession. This is not an act of war. His voice rang out, calm but unshakable. This is an act of memory, of love, of truth. We were told to be afraid of what connects us. We were told to sever what we didn't understand. But the fear was never ours. It was theirs. Those who built walls to protect their thrones. He turned to Alari, her face aglow with every thread of the weave alive behind her. We don't want to rule. We don't want revenge. We want to feel. We want to remember. And we want the galaxy to do the same. Within hours, the song reached far beyond orbital reach. 9. Entire stations powered down in synchrony, their systems overwhelmed by reawakened empathic coding long buried in obsolete firmware. Old Valari satellites thought to be dead flickered to life, repeating the frequency outward, bouncing it across known space. Ships in deep patrol stopped mid-maneuver as officers stared at one another, feeling each other's emotional signatures for the first time without suppression filters. On Earth, the Terran Diplomatic Corps' central archives built atop the ruins of the first Valari embassy cracked open as ancestral bonding records, once purged, began rewriting themselves into every unshielded server, and in the minds of billions, something awakened. But the Corps did not go quietly. They launched Protocol Severance. Their Project Reverence agents engineered assassins with psychic null cores were dispatched to silence Elias and Alari before the weave could fully stabilize. 3 entered orbital reach. 9. The first found them in the vault's outer corridor. He raised his weapon, a thought shard disruptor designed to tear apart mental connections at the root. But before he could fire, Alari looked at him and wept. Not in fear. In remembrance. Your bond was taken, she whispered, but I still feel the echo. The agent froze and broke. He collapsed, shaking, as lost pieces of his old self surged to the surface. He dropped his weapon and sobbed. The second tried to breach through the upper cargo shaft, but Elias met him halfway, unarmed. He spoke one word, remember. The man hesitated, and then lowered his aim. The third made it inside. He stood before the crystal strands, weapon trained at the source of the signal. His eyes were blackened with neural implants, voice a static hiss. Terminate. Dweave. Alari didn't run. She stepped toward him, glowing like starlight. Do you hear it? She asked. Even now? Even you? His hands trembled. I am. The Severance. No, she said. You were someone once, and you still are. Elias reached out, and the three of them, Severance, Diplomat, and Exile, stood together. As the weave flooded the chamber, wrapping them in waves of memory, not to kill, not to control, but to heal. The agent collapsed. Not in defeat, but in peace. 3 days later, Orbital Reach 9 was declared neutral territory by unanimous declaration from the 7 primary systems. A new coalition was formed not of governments, but of bonded Elias. And alari led the first convocation of shared minds, standing as symbols not of power, but of unity. Not of perfection, but of vulnerability. They called it the chorus. Years passed, and across the stars, children were born with eyes that shimmered and voices that vibrated with old songs. Human and Valari, diplomat and dissident, hybrid and whole, on. A quiet balcony in the heart of the new harmony chamber. Elias and alari sat hand in hand, watching 1,000 species gather to speak not with words, but with feeling. He looked at her and smiled. "Do you ever miss the silence?" he asked. She shook her head, eyes soft with starlight. "No. Not when I have your voice inside me." He kissed her gently, forehead to forehead. And the galaxy once divided by fear sang,